It's a little hard to sum up tea and trails succinctly, so let me put it like this. You know when you're nervously stood in the toilet queue pre-race and you're trying to tune in not only to the very funny conversation in front of you where two running buddies are describing the worst and frankly appalling toilet debacles they've had mid-race, whilst also attempting to eavesdrop on an in-depth and informed conversation behind you concerning different successful fueling strategies if you're prone to being a bit of a vommer. And then your own running buddy comes to find you to worriedly talk through and seek your advice on what footwear they should choose as they know you're a shoe geek. Attempts to drag you out the toilet queue, over to a trade stand to look at the latest carbon-plated trail shoes that they need to add to their 1,000 pairs of running shoes collections. Sound familiar, Gary? Well, it's just like that. Plus some very nuanced and intelligent coaching advice, the best I've heard on any podcast. Plus occasionally inadvertent smut talk as Gary plunges headfirst into a sea of smut via the odd inelegant phrase, and then is caught like a cat in headlights as he can't decide whether to swim rapidly to shore or plunge out of the swell. Plus interviews with the sort of runners we all secretly hero worship and want to be, those non-professional elites who somehow manage to be smoking fast whilst having a full-time job and busy life. If you're a trail runner, frankly, it's a bit embarrassing that you're not a listener already, so go listen to the back catalogue and make out that you were an early adopter, or what we like to call an OG, KL Pooch via Apple Podcasts.
Because they begged.
So many things I want to say after that, Gary, and I was an adult. We thought we'd start the show with that. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Tea and Trails podcast. How are you doing? Don't worry, folks. No plans for shorter episodes. Everything is going to stay exactly the same. I don't like change, Eddie. I'm not too sure about you. Yeah, I like familiarity. Thank you to all our partners who provide discount codes for our ACE Patreons. We have Precision Fuel and Hydration, Tiki Boo, Mountain Fuel, Outdoor Active, Vela Forte, Silver, Active Route, The Centurion Running Store, Protein Rebel, Sportshoes.com, Big, Bobble Hats, X Miles, Fawnside Farm Cottages, Ugogu Projects, and Red Bear Sports 2. If you would like to save some money and support the podcast and our partners, then please consider joining Patreon. We couldn't do this without our Patreons. It's as simple as that. And maybe even treat yourself over at Summit Crazy if you would like some awesome Tea and Trails merch. I might have ordered something from Summit Crazy, Eddie. Say no more. Gonna say no more. Leave it hanging.
Some little swimming trunks or something?
Some Speedos.
What did I think?
Some Tea and Trail Speedos. What a sight.
Oh, welcome to episode 47. This week we have a chat with Celeste Yvonne. We've Brew with the Coaches, Tales from the Trails, a competition from our friends at Active Route, and our weekly catch-up.
Super stoked to have Precision Fuel and Hydration as a podcast sponsor. It was my fuel of choice for my weekend long runs. I've got to be more mindful now. I'm doing these long runs 2 times 30-gram gels. Also, Lisa, she pinches my stash when she goes swimming. She suffers from cramp quite a lot, actually, in the PH 1500. She sometimes has the 500 ones too, but the 1500 really helps. And that just goes to show I was that guy who would go to...
Don't be that guy.
I was that guy who would buy 4 bottles of Lucozade, whatever it was, Lucozade Sport. But yeah, that stuff just wasn't good enough. So it's quite interesting that it's not all equal. And don't forget, Patrons get 15% off, and anyone can get 15% off their first order with the code Tea and Trails 15. That's all caps, Tea and Trails 15.
Lucozade Sport, eh? That reminds me of being sick when your mum used to go, try it. What, shall I go and get you some Lucozade Sport from Co-op?
I used to love the classic Lucozade, but the Sport, not so nice.
I don't. Why am I calling it Lucozade Sport? I thought that was just what kids did. It's the classic bit of Lucozade. Oh, Coke's replaced it now, hasn't it? The kids are sick. I'm always like, try and sip on some Coke. Thanks to all our partners and patrons and sponsors for supporting the Tea and Trails podcast. You can find all the links at www.teaandtrails.com or in the show notes. Gary, you've got some apologising to do to our superfans. I told you,
sorry,
Gary, this is what I tell the children when they do it. I told you. I said, oh, I said. And you went
silence, didn't I?
See if anybody notices.
Oh, yeah, they did notice. Apologies, for the missing handwritten notes in the snoods. For the record, I had about 100 to send out. And you're shaking your head at me. I can't believe it. And I did the maths and it was like, well, that's going to take me all Sunday afternoon to write these notes. And
What else
I
have you
just,
got to do?
exactly. What else have I got to do?
You got a life? Come on. Commitment.
So I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. They were there. These pile of snoods were there and it just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So I thought, crikey, if I've got to write these notes, then it's going to be another week before I send them. So yeah. And what I would say actually, people.
Yeah, we did talk about it and we were like, shall we get some like little made up cards, you and I, and then pop those in? But we're mindful of, more paper, everything. And also just to like the money as well. So I've said to Gary, look, I'll write some. We'll do them at the the night before the Winter 200. We'll
see how that goes, listeners.
Book signing. If you want your nude sign, just bring it along and get a Sharpie pen.
Well, big thanks to all our listeners who reached out. I was super poorly last week. And even when I listened back, I looked like, what's that? Is it Wacky Races? The Muttley, the dog with the wheezy chest. That's what I sounded like. I cringed for the hours that I spent editing it. But yeah, thank you for everyone who reached out and concerned about my well-being. But the good news is, although I'm still a bit croaky, the drugs do work. Was that a Verve song? It's probably not on your playlist, is it? The drugs do work, but the drugs don't work.
Watching the Robbie Williams Netflix. I've watched one episode. Have you watched it, Gary?
Oh, wow. That's where he was at, is it 250,000 people or something at Nebworth, some super concert? Not seen it, but
it's honestly, he stands like going out to Glastonbury and he stands on the side of the stage. He's like, oh my God, I don't want to go. It's terrifying. And it's also quite depressing. And all the way through, I'm thinking, I never want to be a pop star. I really hope one day I don't wake up and I'm a pop star.
Okay. Oh, I think we're all safe. Well, anyway. Yeah. Imagine, can you imagine that though? How wild that would be. But yeah, the drugs do work. My heart rate variability is in the green, and I think it's the highest it's ever been, 47 or 48. What happens? So you go on Garmin. You've got your little bar, your graph, your circular graph, and it's orange, and then it goes green in the middle, then it's orange on the other side. What happens if you go, can it be too good? Can it be too high? I've never gone past.
I don't think either of us are ever going to need to worry about it, our HRV. Like, we're just too healthy. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Oh my goodness me, what a problem. But workouts. Let's talk about workouts. Yeah. So I did the 15 times 1 minute at my fantasy 5K pace.
Oh my gosh, this tickled me so much.
You commented immediately. That was like, I don't think I'd put a picture up or anything.
I love it. Tell us
fantasy marathon pace too.
Your fantasy 5K.
Well, I think I mentioned last week, it was all based on my goal marathon time, and I'm kind of rewinding everything back from that. Did a couple of work. So yeah, it's about 6 minute miling. But what I did find, which was very promising, because my heart rate variability is better and I'm feeling better, that 1 minute was faster than my fantasy 5K pace for the same kind of effort. So that was, really nice to feel that at least. Did a couple of workouts with some strides, didn't do the TTT because we recorded the interview with this week's guest. Had super early nights too all week, but waking up feeling exhausted. And then I listened to you, Eddie, and I said I was going to do was it 8 times 3 minutes? I didn't. I gave myself some grace and I didn't do it. I thought, I'm not going to push my luck. I have the long run on Sunday, so do not do that 8 times 3 minutes. Apart from some strides, I did do some strides because strides are quite easy, not so bad. Yeah, long run on Sunday, some with Rex, some on my own, but there's no hiding. I think last week, again, you talked about when you kind of procrastinate, you just, I don't know, your zip's not right, your belt's too tight and you're kind of stopping. When you are on the roads, no matter even if it's just a long, slow run on a Sunday, you don't stop, apart from a wee maybe. But you just keep chugging along. And I have to say, I think I kind of liked it. I think I missed it really. 3 strength sessions. I'm ticking that off every week now, pretty consistent with that. Enjoyed it. Hurt my back a bit though. Poor deadlift form. I think that's probably what it is. Luckily, the weights are not as heavy as what they were pre-Dragon's Back race. Yes, I used to, but I'm super lazy because nobody else in the gym uses the hex bar, so it's a faff on for me to get to it.
Yeah.
So I'm using just the standard bar, which means it's just a bit harder, and the size of the weights means I have to kind of bend down a bit more. Maybe I'll get some weights to raise the height of the bar, so I'm not.
Are you lifting it off the floor?
Yes.
Yeah. Put it on talk about this, or if I talked to somebody else about this,
maybe somebody else. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen people do that on YouTube. They just give themselves a bit of a break, so they're not bent. But I've checked YouTube videos, and my form, I think, is okay.
You do it in front of the mirror.
Yeah, but it's a front-facing mirror. But yeah, I do that kind of gorilla squat where I kind of lunge down, flat back.
And then you just have to really don't let the first thing up almost go butt up first.
It's quite hard, that initial lift,
yeah, the initial that's supposed to, and that's where the back probably is coming into play over the hamstrings and everything. So yeah, initial first little movement, butt cheeks.
The butt cheeks. And bake-off treats. I've been off sugary treats.
I didn't, but
oh wow, yeah, I have done really, really well. I'm super pleased. But Lisa brought home McFlurries for everybody for bake-off, and my initial reaction, because I'm quite controlling, I don't know if you noticed this, but it triggered me a little bit. I was like, oh God, I didn't want to be that guy who didn't eat the treat, but I passed the test. I did have the McFlurry, and I thought once I kind of opened the door to sugar, I was worried I'm going to turn up to, is it Ben Stiller from Dodgeball at the end, where he literally just eats everything and turns really, really large. Luckily, no. I closed that door, moving on.
You're all right with the McFlurry. You're going to...
I survived the McFlurry. It was good. It was good. Low Peak review came out on Sunday. And I have to say, I look back at some of my old YouTube videos, reviews that I did. It's not a comfortable thing to do, actually, look back at yourself.
Oh no, I don't. I've never watched our YouTube channel because I can't imagine anything worse than seeing a big red face and what
You want to do the edit? Wow, you've got all day I lose looking at myself and listening to ourselves. But what was promising, I think I don't want to kind of boost myself up. I don't want to smoke up my own bum.
You really are. Flurry chat. Now
But I am progressing, and I think I'm going in the right direction. Really never 100% happy, but quite happy with how the Ultra Lone Peak came out running-wise. 66 miles for the week. So although, not huge amounts of mileage, I'm going to be pleased with that this time of year. And we just talked off air. That feels like a real 66 miles with, say, a couple of dog jogs, a long run, maybe 2 workouts, and they're not exactly huge workouts that I'm doing at the moment, say 15 minutes of effort. That seems like a real sustainable, nice amount of mileage. I didn't do any wild wheeze though, so no photographs from that.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did do wild wheeze, but nothing with a nice view worth sharing. I did run through some dog poo on my long run on Sunday. First run out with some white trainers on, and I was absolutely raging. Not good.
I'm more upset about white trainers than the dog poo.
Well, it's just what New Balance sent me out. I'm not going to be fussy. So that review will be coming soon. So yeah, okay, I'm so pleased that I'm feeling better physically, and past the sugar test. And I'm feeling okay, apart from my achy back. What about you, though? You've had quite an eventful week. I've seen Lost and Found.
I've got I don't know. Should I share these stories out? There is just so much.
I can't believe how have you managed to lose it and find it.
Oh my God. When I put a little Instagram story on, because I was kind of lonely and I was all by myself because Bryn was away for 300 days, but it felt like 300 days. And when I came back to Instagram in the evening, there was like 25 messages of people going, "I can't believe you've lost another."
Can you get a lanyard though for airport? I don't know if that's even a thing.
Oh my God! Do I have time for this sort of thing? People like very quickly send me links to stuff. I was like, anyway, let's rewind to the beginning of the week. So,
okay, Bryn
said to me, beginning of the week, remember, I'm away. I'm away for his friend's annual reunion. You haven't told me that. I did. Everyone knows the classic.
Is it on the calendar?
We don't have a calendar. I did tell you. I've mentioned it. Like, yikes. So, and he does this to me, and he goes, "I'm going away for the weekend," but he leaves on Thursday morning. So I said, that's not a weekend.
No, Bryn's right under the bus, are you?
Bless him. But I would never grudge, like I joke to him because of course it's so important and he only sees people once and they haven't done that for years. So it's super important that he goes and reconnects with his buddies. But it did mean I had the week from hell, Gary, because the weekend was then going to be supercharged and I wasn't going to be able to do very much running, but it was like one of my busiest weeks for training leading up to the race. Also forgotten that I'd said I'd have friends' kids to stay the night.
Oh.
So, oh my God, I've got a house. Oh my God.
It's like really stressful.
Let's rewind, beginning of the week. So good start of the week. Run, gym, feeling good. On Tuesday, I had a chat with Emily, your friend Emily. She said she'd
cool.
all about my fueling plan for Winter 200. Don't know if people are really interested in the deets, but basically I have really worked on my fueling since the Totdret debacle. I've taken it right back to basics and I've really rebuilt my fueling. And so I went through everything with her of what I'd done. And she was like, Eddie, gold star. Oh, you've pretty much done my job for me. You've done this all. So it was all good. It was all like really good reinforcement. She gave me some other ideas about because it's the winter and it's quite different, the fueling and the electrolytes through the summer. So it's super interesting what she said to me about how I'm going to balance that, the fluid intake, the electrolyte, and not sweating as much, but getting the right amount. Because that was one of the things, the big, like,
you might not feel like you want to drink as much. Yeah,
exactly. So how then do I manage the electrolyte? I'm not sharing a load of this stuff because I don't want people to then go, well, that's what Eddie does, so I'm going to do it. So you guys do you. I'll do me. Obviously, reach out if you're like, how do I set that up? How do I set that up? But it was 100%, 150 billion% worthwhile if you're a little bit unsure about your.
But it is free too. I think we need to say it's free. And there's no hard sell.
No, she wasn't. She was just like, go. We went through everything. And then I was like, right, let's talk about caffeine, because I've never used it strategically in races. It's just been sort of ad lib. But she was like, so how many cups of tea do you drink during the day? Oh, Emily, shall we?
She's never listened to the podcast then.
So we talked about like, and we said, how much caffeine is in a tea bag and how much is in a gel. So she said there's about 70 milligrams of caffeine in a tea bag, and there's about 30 to 40 milligrams of caffeine in a caffeinated gel, whatever brand. I had a look at some of my mates' gels that had caffeine in when we were running the other day. So
ease off the tea. That's freaked me out.
I was like, oh my God. So I've had like 200 milligrams of caffeine before I got the kids.
You're wired.
So we talked a little bit about the caffeine. She was like, and then, so basically, yes, you do want to use it on these overnight races. So you want to take it basically when you would normally go to bed. And she said, she said, have a cup of tea. I was like, I love you, Emily. This sounds great. About 10 o'clock, Gary appears on the trail, or at an appropriate point when you're crewing me, have a cup of tea. And then, but she said, once you start having the caffeine, you need to then make sure that you take it every 2 hours for it to keep you in your system. It drops very quickly after 2 hours. So that is something that definitely, I would have done that probably anyway, but now we'll just be a bit more mindful to take the caffeine, especially on the second night when things get funky. You see people like that terrifying thing. I don't even want to talk about it, actually. People are putting on Facebook.
I'm going to reschedule a call before Lakeland 100 because, that caffeine strategy.
And just a few little ideas of stuff I said. She was like, oh, try this. And she was just reassuring and really nice and non-judgy and non-scary. Non-judgy, non-scary. Those are the sort of scientists I like talking to. So it was really good and sort of like really super simple. I liked that. Super simple strategy to have in place. And I'm just basically for the Winter 200, I'm just sort of like working in 10-mile blocks, and that keeps the fueling as well quite simple to do. Because I reckon, 10 miles to start with probably will take me 2 hours by the end, 18 hours. Let's just see. So that was good. And the fueling is carried on well. I was a bit worried that I was not taking on enough carbs per hour. I can take about 60 to 70 grams an hour. And we talked about but I was like, I don't think I can do that for 40, 50, 60. Like, how do you do that? And she was like, you know, what you need to think about is the big picture and not worry about, you know, being like, some hours you'll take more, some hours you'll take less, but the average, and that's what they did for your Dragon's Back too, isn't it? It's the average that you want to think about, rather than like, this has got to be this has got to be this every hour. But I was like, oh yeah, that's really good, because like every 6 to 8 hours, let's say, I'm going to have scoffed down something like either a reheated meal or something. So that will mean I'll get like 100 grams.
Yeah.
But then like,
and also not be wedded to that. You know, you might just think, I need a boost.
Yes, she said the same thing. She said, if you get hung up on it, because like 2:00 in the morning, I might be like, a handful of nuts is all that's going to go, you know, or a gel. That's all I'm going to get this hour. And that will be what it will be. But I'll know that like 2 hours time, I'm going to get to a big checkpoint and I'm going to get to you, and then I'm going to boost this carb. So the thinking athlete. So talking about the thinking athlete, I went out, I think we talked about it before, when the weather here, I can't even, the rain is just, it's just so depressing.
It's rough. I don't like it.
So I went out on Thursday. So what I had to do, please don't quote me on this, guys. Please don't do this. So I had to cram nearly all my miles into the 5 days that I knew that, is this a good idea? Probably not. But also I'm training for a race that involves a ton of mental suffering, a ton of fortitude, is that the word? A ton of gumption, a ton of like doing really hard stuff, rubbish stuff. I want to do it. Constantly rattling my monkey, constantly rattling the cage, go, oh, it's great, I don't want to go out. Come on, back out. We've got to get back out. We've got to get this done. So though my week wasn't like on paper, like as a coach, you'd go, oh, you are an idiot. But for the sort of race I'm doing, it was good, because it was so hard. It was so hard. So I met my mates on Thursday to do that's our long run, social run day. And I'd already run 50 miles, I think, by then, and my little legs. And I wore the full pack. Now, the full pack isn't heavy, but it's definitely, I don't really notice it on the flat, but on the ups, I can feel it's just a little bit, it just raises my heart rate a little bit more. I feel. What
kind of weight is it?
I haven't weighed it yet. I will weigh it, but I reckon it's probably 2 to 3 kilograms, maybe.
Well, even just the water, if you've got 2 bottles, there's a kilo pretty much.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. So and then it's basically got a whole outfit in the back plus all your stuff. So yeah, probably 3 plus then all the fuel, because I'm carrying all the fuel for my long runs as if I'm not going to see you for 4 hours, basically, so that I just get used to you feature a lot in all this. So I just get used to where it's going to be, you know, where the different is. Anyway, so we went out on the long run. There's a mixture between, the snow's quite heavy up above like 1,300, 1,400 meters around here. So we're a bit like, we have to keep going up bits and then go, no, we can't get up there. We've got to come back down. So it's not satisfying running. Anyway, let's just say I was not fresh. Guys, wait, they were chatting. I was like, I'm not in this vibe. I can't even. So what do you think, Eddie? And I'd be like, I don't really think anything.
Don't ask me a question.
Don't ask me a question. You guys just keep talking. Anyway, so we ran all together for about 15 miles, and then they've got to get back to their sit down proper jobs. And I was going to, I was like, right, got to do 4 to 5 hours. That's what I've got to do. And I ran up past our house, got to 19 miles. I was like wet through to the bone, miserable, so tired. And I rang Bryn. He was at home working. And I said, I opened with, I've done 19 miles. And he went, 19? Come on. I was like, I just hung up.
Wrong answer.
I just hung up. I was like, I would thought he was going to go, oh, well done. In this weather, that's a
what a champ.
Yeah. So, okay, so I stood there. I had a right paddy, Gary. I was like, right, imagine what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're absolutely freezing cold. You need to eat. You're being a right old toddler. So I was like, you can't go home until you've sorted yourself out. So sort yourself out. So changed my gloves and I shoved, I joke you not, a double handful of chocolate M&M peanuts in my face. That's quite hard to chew when you've got quite a lot in your mouth. Anyway, I was like, come on. So I took those. And I was like, you got to, come on, get moving again. If you stop now, you'll be really annoyed with yourself. So they worked a treat. And then I just kept the bag out. I did another 5 miles, I think, got myself warm, got eating. And then I was like, yeah, I got myself going again. I feel that's enough for today. And I came home and, of course, Bryn was lovely and was like, that's good call. Yeah, you got yourself good. Excellent. Got yourself going again. But
that's in there now, Eddie. That's in the bank.
That's in the bank.
In the bank. Yeah, I love it.
I was like, should I have gone on for another hour? But this is what I was like, Eddie, another hour. Do I need to do another hour now? I was really tired. I was pretty cold. I was going to have to dig a little bit deeper than I wanted to dig. And there's always that fine balance. And I was like, right now, I don't feel I need to dig that deep. I know I could, but I need to save that. That on the race, oh yeah, sure. That's not even digging. That's just a light fluff compared to how deep. So I was like, I've got myself going again. So I know that feeling of like, oh my gosh, eat the chocolate, peanut butter, M&Ms, whatever they are, get going again. But so I called it, went home, right decision. But then the next day I was going to have a shorter run, but I thought, no, you're all right. Bit of self-punishment. Get back out there again. Sort yourself out. Get your layers right. Wear some more clothes. Get your waterproof socks on. Get yourself lubed up because my bag was rubbing on my back still. So I unpacked the whole bag. I repacked it so that nothing was all flat against my back. Something I know I learned from when I did the spa. Come on, Eddie, come on. Spend some time thinking, Eddie. So I did that. And then I ran almost 16 miles, warm, fed. It was still raining, but it was much better. And I was pleased that. So there's just a little lesson in flexibility, listening to the body, but also when you're really busy, I didn't dress enough for that long run. I didn't fuel enough, all these things that we do make the mistakes every single time.
Yeah, but as long as you don't repeat the mistakes, that's...
Don't beat yourself up. I feel happier. And I also did better glove system. Everything was better.
I feel sorry for people who, like you say about the chiffin. I had that little thing on my chest with my strap, but other than that,
I think of you when I step in the shower, Gary. And I literally have to do
That's just one problem I just don't have to deal with. I'm super lucky like that.
Because you don't have super soft skin like me.
Leather skin, yeah.
Leather, old skin. You probably got really hairy back too, haven't you? So probably just...
No hairs on my back.
Anyway. So, so it's amazing as well. On Thursday, I felt so bad. And then on Friday, I went out and did another long run and none of that how does that happen?
I don't know.
Body is an amazing thing. Anyway, so a charged week. There was some emotion. Then Friday night, I'd forgotten I'd said I had these friends' kids. Not on the Friday, but during the week, she'd reminded me, which is of course fine. But so I had 6 kids to sleep over all by myself.
Oh my goodness!
Having done a double back-to-back long runs. Lots of then they all have activities. I've got to feed them all.
You need to buy an Xbox for those days, Eddie. That's what happens.
9:30 at night, I was like, right, everyone, bed, let's get in bed. And I hadn't fed myself, Gary, and I was like, oh my God, Eddie. It was all too much. But it was done. My duty was done. Then it snowed, of course. This week can only be filled with more jeopardy. Woke up on the Saturday when I had to get all these kids to all their activities, get them all packed up, breakfast, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, got to get up. I got up at 6 to get the dogs out. That was going to be my only slot, and I didn't really want to leave them. I thought that they actually would all burn the house down if I left them. I left them by themselves. So I ran up deep snow. But I'd worn too many clothes, so it was too hot. So as I pulled my hood off, listening to something on my AirPods, they fell out onto the snow. And not just anywhere, they fell out where they're cutting all these trees down. So there was all this rutted tracks and everything. And I was on time faults. And it was like, this was like 20 to 7. So it was only just getting like, oh my God, I do not have time to find these AirPods. Found one, could not find the other one. So what I did, I marked where I'd dropped it on the path.
With a wee? You'd like a wee?
I circled it with a wee and a little bit. And I thought I'll just have to come back and just, oh my God, it's like leaving just €100 on the path. I was like, oh my God.
It would really stress me out.
So and it enrages me because that's the 3rd time I've done that, Gary. I've got another pair with one. I've still got one with just one.
Oh, I wonder actually if you can match
snatchy, snatchy. Anyway, good try. Did the first morning's activities, and then I said, right, young children, come with me with fresh little eyes, and let's go and have a look and see if we can find this AirPod. And I literally went back on the track, found my marking, and it was there. It was right there. Unfortunately, it was in a then everyone had walked, the snow had started to melt, and it was in a very muddy puddle, and it doesn't work.
Oh,
so it
not
did
a happy ending.
But a sound came out, and now it's more.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a happy ending, Eddie.
No, it's not a happy ending. So do you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have some for my birthday, and that just makes me sad because.
Well, I would try to pair the other one. Maybe that is a possibility.
Well, I'm going to do.
Or they're not.
I might have to anyway, so it ended up, then just a mad weekend of standing in the rain, watching football matches, washing
kids. I saw that.
It wasn't much. We got back on Sunday at like 2:00. We lit the fire, and my mate was like, "Do you want to go sledging?" I was like, "Oh, no, I really don't want to go sledging." I was going to do like a 40-minute run to finish off my week, and I was like, "Do you know what? I'm done. I am cooked. Put a fork in me. I am done." It was a tough week, but I've come out okay. I'm back on form. Good start to the week.
It's good, solid.
All will be fine. Every day, Gary, I think I'm too tired. Am I pushing too hard? I'm too tired. I don't want to go into this overtrained. I don't want to get injured. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, fine. Then I start running. And the first like five minutes, I'm like, oh, bit creaky.
Yeah.
And then I'm fine. I'm like, the body is an amazing thing.
I think you've got a good balance.
You get the fuel in, as long as you get the fuel in. So the couple of days when Bryn's away, the fueling went, the evening meals were questionable. And I noticed that was bad. You got to have those calories in. And I definitely dipped down on my normal 3,000 calorie meal, give you anxiety.
Yeah. It's important, even on your long runs. I think when I mentioned in my weekly roundup, those couple of gels, there might have been a time when I'd done 14 miles without anything.
Oh yeah, back in the day, Garrett. Now I don't even do. Now I'm in my like peak weeks. I struggle with a 45-minute run without a bit of Velo 40 snack or a precision hydration.
I used to go out without breakfast. I don't do that anymore. Just a short run.
I do sometimes if it's like a 6 a.m. A 6 a.m. run though, Gary. I don't do that very often because normally I do it after the school run. But a 6 a.m. I literally was like out the bed, got up, out the door. It is horrendous. It is.
When I do that though, then I'm like smashing Honey Nut Cheerios at 11 o'clock at night.
And I turned around, so I just ran up the hill and turned around and ran back again. And I thought, I'm going to die of hunger. I was like dying of hunger.
Yeah, when the energy goes, it disappears quick.
Anyway, we move on. Another week done. 2 more weeks. We're already halfway through this second week. One more big volume week next week, and then the taper.
I love the taper. Some people don't. I really love the taper.
They haven't worked hard enough then, Gary. That's their problem. Anyway, brew the coaches.
Yeah, this week's question comes from Patreon, James Pierce. I've been running for about 20 years now, predominantly road halves. Then a few years ago, I found trail running. We all know where that ends up. Yes, shoe purchasing addiction, entering monthly trail events, summer fell racing in the Peak District, and ultimately entering as many trail ultras in a year as possible. I'm currently running approximately 60k a week with a half marathon PB of about 141, so there is room for improvement. I've done 2 ultras a year for the past few years, no DNFs yet. Next year, I have the UTS 50k in May booked in, and also Manchester Marathon booked in for April. I'm currently putting together my training plan for the rest of this year and Q1 of next year. My question is this: should I follow a marathon training plan? Should I follow a mountain ultra training plan, or should I talk to a specialist coach? I'm a little nervous, to be honest, and unsure what to do for the best. Also, in theory, I will be entering a duathlon in December. Hardmore is 26.2. That's a lie. They're never 26.2 in February, and something in March. Does an endless set of events hinder training? For reference, my A race is UTS, and I want to finish it and not die or DNF. Manchester, I'm currently seeing as a long, flat training run. Ideally, I want to finish in around 3.5 hours. and hopefully see Gary from the podcast. Oh, wow.
Hey,
Let's
don't
make
we
it
all?
happen. Let's make it happen, James. He wants to go first with this.
Voice of doom and also wisdom.
Okay, right, James. I would say, first of all, what I would say to you as a coach is to define your A and your B race. So look in your year and define what races you want to do. So it sounds like, when you say, do you need a coach? You might not specifically need a coach, but you definitely do, by the sounds of it, need to periodize training for the races that you want to enter. I would say doing the marathon before UTS, it probably isn't ideal because UTS 50K is quite a savage race. It's quite fast as well. Ideally, I'd be telling you to focus on that on UTS because you've said it's your A race. However, if you want to continue the marathon and you're happy to kind of put that into a long run, there are some good things that can come from that. Firstly, your running economy, and as long as you are introducing specificity in regards to the UTS, so for example, that might be you're going away for weekends and concentrating on that type of ground and doing your long runs and, for example, on that type of ground, that would be really helpful. As long as you keep that zone 2, that again could help with your long run for the marathon as well. It would be ideal if you were focusing as much of that time on the specificity of the race that is your A race. You've also not got a huge amount of time from the end of your marathon to doing the 50K, so you might still have some residual fatigue going into the 50K as well. So those are things to think about. So my A solution would be to maybe not do the marathon, or again, just treat it as a long run as in terms of build up for your UTS 50K. That would be my A plan for you. If you do want to go in a bit more on the marathon, then okay, I would focus during the week on getting maybe a bit faster, running economy, maybe more marathon specific stuff, which can help you in UTS because if you want to run it faster, and then maybe using your weekends for specificity on that type of terrain that you're going to be running on for 50K. The other piece to remember for mountain races that you really do need to have strong legs. So making sure that you're doing lots of single leg work, and you're getting your lifting right, for example, for mountain running. That's super important to be strong all over, but particularly strong legs, strong glutes, all that good stuff. So don't neglect that with the marathon training as well. The number one thing I would say in regards to everything you're doing, it sounds a little bit to me just a little bit all over the place. So I would say you need a plan. You don't necessarily need a coach for that. And you are more, you could definitely just do that yourself, but you definitely do need a plan. Have an A plan, you have your A race and your B race, and then have your training lined up for those races and spend a bit of time looking about what that looks like for you, giving yourself adequate recovery time afterwards before you go into the next race again. It's great to have lots of races out there, but and to be doing stuff and to be involved, that's awesome. But have a look at your why. Why are you doing these races? Are you wanting to do your best in the races, or are you there for the experience? In which case, you can go out and have the best time and not worry too much about getting, the training period right for that race specifically.
I'm going to go against everything that Trish said now. James, I think especially with a race like UTS, you need to be all in. Okay. And I think the way it's not a 50K, it's not a Thames Path 50K, which in which case a marathon build would be perfect. It is a really hard, probably one of the most technical 50Ks that we offer in the country. It's really competitive. It's going to be fast. You want to be fit. It's often like last year it was super hot. People really suffered in the heat. You want to be fit. You want to be strong. You want to know the course. If it is, as you said, now none of this is right. So this is just me being devil's advocate to what Tricia said. If it really is your A race, I say go all in. Go all in. If you don't feel ready and you're like, well, I've just started. There's so many cookies out there for me to try. I got to put my hand in the jar and just keep eating all these different cookies and all these different races. That's great. But it's a dangerous game to play on the injury front as well. When there's races, however, unless you're a very small percentage of person that can go to a race and use it as a training run, then every single race is going to cause stress. It's going to need tapering. It's going to need recovering. that doesn't necessarily relate in a fitness build. That's often then actually your fitness goes down. So you get as fit as you can before these races and the marathon maybe, and then actually you take a bit of a downward spike towards UTS. So I'd say if you can and go, and it's a brave decision to make, and this might be the trickiest bit, is putting all your eggs in one basket and say, actually, I'm going to go all in for this race, and I'm not going to feed the little chimp in me that says, you've got to do all these races. Unless you're doing all these races, what is life? I'm actually going to work out and plan for UTS, and I'm going to work out my recce weekends. I'm going to know that course really well. If I can't get to recce the course, I'm going to go to really specific places, and I'm going to do a really good 12 to 16 week build up, working on my hill strength, working on my technical abilities, working on my fitness. If you love training for a marathon and you love that, you can still incorporate that. Quite often with, especially my runners that I have like in it who live in towns, is we'll do like a 2-week cycle. So one of their long runs will be a marathon-based running. So we'll do like blocks of marathon-based running within their long run, like 10, 15 minutes of work, so that they do like a shorter long run of like 2 hours, but more of a marathon-based approach. And then the weekend after, they'll go and binge on the trails and do something like that. So you could incorporate lots of the stuff that you like doing for the marathon training. But I would say if you want to go all in on UTS, then I would perhaps look at doing a marathon either much earlier or much later, and just being focused on one goal. Because if there's too many things, one, it's very complicated, the training. And that's when I think if you do decide to do lots of things, you probably would be useful to get a coach who can work out the jigsaw themselves and actually spend the time going, okay, so how are we going to, you need to put some bikes in there, you need to do this, you need to do that there, which is very hard to do and probably something that you might not have time to do or the experience to do. So if you decide to do that, I probably would get a coach. If not, I would just sit back, work 12 to 16 weeks back, put in different sessions, work around, but the biggest focus I would have would be to go for that hill strength, working with poles, all sorts of different things that can make it exciting. Not saying that you don't need to have, you can have little build-up races, but make them specific to that race, because it's such a specific race on how you cover that terrain, how you fuel, how you pace over that terrain. And I think as you're new to that trail running, throw that, make that your focus rather than the comfort perhaps of the roads as well. So there's no right or wrong answer, James. There's like, you could do it either way, you could do it all the ways. But lots of people listening as well, especially when you're new to ultras and you want to get out there every weekend. And I think basically it just needs a lot of thinking.
I'd be curious how close 3:30 was to a PB, to what kind of day that was for James, because if that's a PB or close, I'd be pretty scared to go into UTS 50K. And UTS, it's about 11,000 feet, 34 miles. That's quite aggressive.
It's a cheeky one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite aggressive.
I think it comes down to your why. Why are you doing it? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with, just wanting to go out there and do these races. We only live once. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with just wanting to go out there and, live it and do it. And, if you're not that fussed about how you come and you're more consumed about the experience, I think that's great. That's brilliant. But yeah, it will, doing the marathon, I think will probably impact your UTS.
I've just realised as we're talking about this, so I'm doing Manchester Marathon and I hopefully want to do really well at Old County Tops again, and it's exactly the same turnaround.
Gary, did you put this in, Gary? Is this my friend James?
Oh, but yeah, James.
But as we said, Gary, I think we said this before we started recording the question, you're highly experienced now on all sorts of different terrains. You've done a number of marathons. You've spent a lot of time in the mountains and in the hills. So you've got that skill set as well. You've got the balance. You've made your mistakes. You've earned your time, man. And so perhaps you can approach it a bit differently as well. To perhaps James can as well, and perhaps lots of people listening to this as well. Rebecca, with your doctor's cap on, would you say he could be at a little bit at risk of perhaps a little bit of burnout there for that heavy?
Yeah, I think it's recovery, isn't it? And being able to prevent overtraining injuries is the big risk. I think all the different terrain that you're training on, you need, if UTS is the A goal, as has been said before, then the specificity of the training for that probably is the most important thing. And then you've got to work out in amongst all of that, can you do the training required for the marathon marathon as well, particularly if you've got it sounds like you've got a time in mind, and that's the bit which would make me nervous about it, because if that time is there for the taking on the day, you'll push to get that, and that's when you can start to sort of encounter issues, and the recovery from that then may not be what it needs to be for you to then go on and do UTS. So I think, pick your A race, tie your colours to that mast, and see how that goes, and maybe save the marathon for one toward. There's autumn marathons, isn't there, or ones towards the end of the season that may then fit after that. But it's an ambitious number of events, and makes me slightly nervous, obviously, as a doctor, in terms of injury risk. So
I think thinking of longevity as well, like don't be too greedy at the cookie jar, as I said, at the sweetie tin. Like think of longevity as well. Those races aren't going anywhere, but just be really mindful of your recovery and your body. And you want to be running when you're older. You want to see, you've just started on the trails. You want to see that curve of improvement, not end up being injured for 6 months as well. So patience.
I think about that quite a lot. When Kim Cavill came on the show and she said, we all want to be running when we're kind of 70s, 80s. Yeah, very good. James, if you do decide to toe the line, maybe have a start line selfie. Maybe we can make that happen. It's such a wonderful marathon. Yeah, it's tempting. It is tempting to keep putting you in the cookie jar. I fully appreciate what you're asking there, James.
Toast Gary.
Oh my goodness me, 3.5 hours. That's a bit slower than I want to go on that day. I've got it. We'll see. Right. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap.
Talk is cheap, Gary.
Actually, I put these going out there.
James, so you better.
I'm just throwing numbers out there. I don't know if I can do it.
You love that.
Oh dear.
Best of luck with it all, James. Curious how the year pans out. Yeah, and only joking about being faster than you. Those words could come back to haunt me. And like I mentioned earlier, I am currently operating on fantasy paces. So yeah, we will see. And if you do see me on the start line at Manchester, please do say hello.
Thanks, Rebecca and Trish. And don't forget, we must be due to record some more Brew with the Coaches soon. But so keep sending your questions in to hello@tntrails.com.
This week's guest is Celeste Yvonne. Celeste's got a brand new book out called It's Not About the Wine, The Loaded Truth Behind Mummy Wine Culture. Stick with us, guys. I know it's about mummy wine culture, but yeah, I am a guy and I love just talking about trainers and stuff like that. And I'm not comfortable about talking about mental health, subjects we talked about on the podcast, and menopause and mummy wine culture. These are not in my roster of conversations, but hopefully, there's something there for everybody. It might not be alcohol that you're struggling with. It could be mental health or any addiction. Yeah, maybe there's something in there for you. I really enjoyed our conversation with Celeste. I hope you do too.
We are delighted to welcome Celeste Yvonne to Tea and Trails podcast this week. She has just released a new book titled It's Not About the Wine, The Loaded Truth Behind Mummy Wine. I've read the book. It's incredible. Gary's listened to numerous podcasts now. We've got so much to chat to you. And we are so excited to have an American on our very British Tea and Trails podcast. And Gary has actually just said, excuse the accent if you don't understand what I say.
That's very British, isn't it, to apologise straight away?
We're already apologising. We apologise. Welcome to the podcast, Celeste.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Gary. Glad to be here.
We ask all of our guests. First question is, it's classic. It's a 3-in-1 question straight away. So sorry about that. But yeah, where are you?
Warm you up. All
right. Where are you? What's the view from your window? And have you been for a run today?
Okay. I live in Reno, Nevada. The view from my window is a neighbor's house, but it's actually not my window. We are living at my mom's house right now while we do a remodel. So it's from my mom's window. And I did Orange Theory this morning. So I ran 2.5 miles and then I did some strength training.
What are your local trails like? I love hearing what people's running routes are like.
I do mostly street running, but we have amazing trails. I live right at the base of Mount Rose, and we're about 25 minutes from Lake Tahoe. So high elevation. Right now, I'm at about 4,000 feet.
Oh, wow.
And we can reach up to 10,000 with Mount Rose, but beautiful scenery, beautiful mountains and forests, and just great for hiking, running, snowshoeing, all the things.
Is skiing in the winter?
Yes, we ski in the winter.
Is there snow there yet?
Yeah. My gosh, our local ski resort opens tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah.
That's exciting. You live about the same height as I do, so I can imagine our weather's probably quite similar.
Probably.
Cold, not too cold, but yeah, winter is pretty wintry.
Yes.
Snow, yeah, love it.
Now it's November. It's October, November marathon season. Have you done a marathon this autumn?
I have. I ran Washington D.C. last weekend.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. That was my first time. It was tough. It was very unseasonably warm. And I definitely hit the 18-mile wall. I went through this. Why am I doing this? This is dumb. What am I trying to prove? Yeah.
Did you just say that was your first marathon?
No, that was my fifth.
Oh, okay.
It was my first one running DC.
Yeah. What's that course like?
It's great because, I'm coming from 4,000 feet elevation to 0. And there's just a couple of hills in the beginning, and then it's pretty flat. And it's really cool. You get to see a lot of the scenic places in DC. But it was very crowded. You are, elbow to elbow for most of the run. I didn't like that part.
It puts me off I'm a trail runner, so I like to not be near anyone or talk to anybody. Normally, but also in running. But Gary you love it, don't you? You love it.
I'm high-fiving, taking sweets off the children. I love it.
Well, you would have loved this.
Have you ever been to the UK, Celeste?
I have. It's been a long time. I did apply for London Marathon this past year. I didn't get in, so I'll try again next year.
And I'm just curious, what are you drinking there? Are you a tea drinker?
I'm a coffee drinker.
I do like the coffee. Not allowed it though. My age doesn't agree with me.
Oh yeah, no. I definitely feel it like as I get older. Like it leaves me very shaky. But old habits die hard.
It's all right in the morning. Can't do one post lunchtime. Otherwise.
Oh yeah, me neither. Absolutely. Yeah.
Eddie's going to dive more into talking about the book, but before we do that, I'm really curious. How do you name a book? And it's quite a sensitive subject. It's not like you're running a kind of 10 hacks to beat your marathon PB. So yeah, how do you come to get your title of a book?
That's a great question because it was not originally the title I had planned. The book started out called Mommy Needs Wine. And we decided to change it after I got my publisher because, number one, it felt like it was satire. And people might buy it thinking it was just a humor book. And number two, in the UK, there is a book called Mummy Needs Wine.
Okay.
That is satire.
Oh my God.
So it was confusing. And one of the pieces of the book I write about specifically says, when we talk about mommy wine culture, we really need to help people understand it's not about the wine. And I think after I wrote that, something just kind of clicked, like this is what the title of the book needs to be. And everyone agreed. The publisher agreed. We lined up on that pretty well. And I'm glad for it because I don't think Mommy Needs Wine was what this book needed to be called.
No, I like it. I love the title. Can you explain a little bit about like where the idea from the book came? Because I heard as well that this wasn't maybe like your original idea of your first book, which actually I still think is a really good idea. The first idea of the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love
the
that.
Ultimate Mom Challenge.
Yeah, I liked that idea. I was like, hey, you could even make that a TV program. But if you don't want to share it because you're like, oh, I could still tell us a little bit about where the idea of the book came. Did it follow along your sobriety journey as you were writing it, or was this a sort of post when we becoming sober?
It was an evolution in a lot of ways because the book initially started as a parenting book, really, a memoir of my parenting journey. And then when I quit drinking, my agent called me because we were getting ready to write this book. And she says, you know what, we can't write a parenting book until you write a a sobriety book first, because this is the first step of this story. And I absolutely agree that this story needed to come first. And I think when you hear or read my book and you kind of understand the layers involved, you'll see that underneath all these things I was doing and I still try to do to become a better parent, at the core of it was this hurdle I had to overcome, which was I have to quit drinking. I just didn't know it at the time. When we decided to transition the book from parenting to my sober journey, at first it was just going to be a memoir about my sober journey. What happened was the pandemic hit, so many things changed, and I realized that, number one, more women are drinking than ever. And number two, when the pandemic hit, it became so obvious that we do not have the appropriate systems in place to support mothers, and that the mental load of motherhood has become this overwhelming, all-consuming thing, to the place where it made sense to me why more women were drinking than ever. And I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to research it and dig into it and understand it, and also give people alternative solutions who were in the same spot I was in just a few years prior. So that's kind of how the book evolved. It started out as a just straight up memoir, and it transformed into a little bit of my story, a little bit of research, a little bit of historical context, and then other women's stories that I interviewed, to not only understand the why, but the how to cope without alcohol in a world where it feels like alcohol is pushed on us for everything, especially motherhood.
When did you feel that alcohol was taking over your journey as a parent? Was there a tipping point where you thought that's enough, or was it sort of a slow process?
I think it was a slow process until it wasn't. I can look back now and see a lot of convincing moments that were nudging me in the right direction, but I didn't realize it at the time. And then it all just kind of snowballed one December morning, almost 6 years ago, where I woke up. It was a Monday morning after, a weekend of holiday parties, just one after the next. And I got into work and I had a panic attack right there in my office, looking at my computer screen. And just so many things kind of went through my head at that moment. A lot of fear, a lot of shame, a lot of frustration, but also this recognizing that what I was doing wasn't sustainable. And the realization that I'm now at this place where alcohol is causing me more problems than solutions. And that was really the mental shift I needed to have for myself to now take this next step and see what a sober life is going to look like. Because I think if I had tried to do it prior to that, I wouldn't have gotten very far. But because I had all these convincing moments that led up to this morning at the office, it kind of was a kick in the pants. I needed to say, I have to try something different now. That was my day one. It'll be 6 years in December. So in a couple of weeks. And it's completely changed my life. I mean, writing the book's just one part of how much everything's changed. My relationship with my children and my husband's changed. The way I show up in this world's changed. My job has changed. I would say 100,000% all for the better.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Was that moment when you were sitting at your desk and that realization, that switch turning? And when we're talking about alcohol addiction, there's a lot of parallels, because people might be thinking, well, I don't drink, I don't have that problem. But addiction is addiction, and it can be seen in many forms as well. Because I can imagine this might relate to people with food, with any sort of addiction. What did stopping look like for you? Because also we see a lot of people talk about addiction and stopping the journey, they don't share what the journey is like. And they're like, yeah, no, I just stopped. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I turned to yoga and but I can imagine it's not smooth. It's not a smooth ride. Can you tell us a little bit about like what it was like to stop? And did you find as a mum, like there was support available, or sort of coming into the real world, not with alcohol there to support you, was quite a tough journey?
So, I came in after watching my father struggle with his own addiction issues. And I had seen how he handled that, or lack thereof. I had seen him go into treatment and 12-step programs and fail all of them. And in my heart and head, I was convinced and determined to be different and do this differently than he did, which was not the best way to do it. If I were to do it all over again, I would do it differently. But I decided when I decided on that day one, like I have to do something different and it has to start with alcohol. I decided I was going to do it myself. I'm going to do it alone. And there was a lot of shame. There was so much shame in that decision, like that I didn't deserve support, that I should be ashamed and embarrassed to be here.
Is that from yourself? Is that how you felt? Oh,
and this, keeping in mind, I grew up as a child of an alcoholic. There was a lot of shame presented around my father's addictions. So I think I just took that and ran with it. And I felt like this is something I had to do on my own, and I didn't want other people to know about. Now, looking back, this is probably one of the hardest ways to break free from addiction.
Wow, you're amazing.
I do not recommend it for anybody. I essentially white knuckled those early weeks and months, and I just felt like I was breathing through a straw. It was really hard. It did not have to be as hard as I made it. I got through them initially, and then I started to lean into what we call emotional sobriety, which is learning the why. Why are we drinking? How do we think that serves us? And how can we find better coping strategies to take care of ourselves? But it took me a little while to get there. So that's what my early days looked like. It looked like a lot of distractions and a lot of shame and a lot of secrets. I mean,
did you tell people?
I only told two people. I only told my husband and my mom, and I did not want anybody else to know about it. And that was just the shame talking. And, now, obviously, I'm very loud and proud about it. It just took time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is quite hard to share sometimes.
Oh, I find it hard to share just tiny little things sometimes with my husband. I worry about even my husband who has to deal with everything. It's hard to make that initial sentence, isn't it?
Totally.
But extending it past your family, you see on social media, we are shown this kind of perfect life. It's a kind of curated life sometimes. So just to share your life, which you feel isn't perfect, that's super tough. That's super tough to do.
I think the reason why I am so vocal and loud about it now is because growing up in a home of addiction, secrets were the life we lived. And it really hurt our family so much. And so now I kind of have taken the opposite approach where I don't want to carry secrets. I don't want there to be secrets. I don't want, because secrets carry power with them. And I don't want anything that's a source of shame to have any power over me ever again.
And I guess as well to break the cycle in your family, because you hear about the addiction coming through from parents to children, to parents to children. I think, to break the cycle, you're being totally honest with the children. The children see mum writing this incredible book and being so brave, and it just feeding into their life and it being like, that's what, I'm sure if your kids like my kids, they're like, yeah, whatever. Great.
Oh, they are. I brought the first book home and my son scribbled all over the cover. Like first thing. No. I was like, if this isn't symbolic of parenting, then I don't know what is.
Look, can we quickly touch base about a little bit about the diet and alcohol industries, which again, you're very vocal about, which I fully support. And I really enjoy. I'm very wary. I don't let my children have social media, and I'm very wary of myself of looking of Instagram time. I love Instagram because I like looking at puppies and ducks falling off bridges and stuff like that. But I'm very, very wary of the risk of comparison, the risk that it's not real. And in the sort of industry that Gary and I are in, the sort of running health and fitness industry, the nutrition, like the stuff people put out perhaps who aren't qualified as well, that's not right, that's not real. I can get myself in a right pickle about it. But can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on how maybe not just social media as well, just like general the diet and alcohol industries, how they've sort of fed into this is acceptable, this is what you should be doing as a mother or a father, not just drinking, but also exercise and diet. What are your sort of feelings about that message we're given now?
I mean, they all feed into kind of the same consumerism game, don't they? I mean, that we're all just a few products away from our
perfection.
Happiest, perfect youngest life, and realizing the comparison between the diet industry, the beauty industry, and the alcohol industry, and how they are all so driven and targeting. I specifically studied how they target women. We call it pinkwashing, to make women think that alcohol is what they need to feel good, to feel sexy, to feel young and energized. And the pervasiveness of mommy wine culture is really what I fell into in my own parenting journey, because it was this concept that alcohol will fix my ails as a mother, that I need alcohol to survive raising my children. And it was an easy message to lean into because genuinely I needed support. I felt like I was drowning. I was exhausted. I was anxious. I was dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. And here are these messages coming across through social media, through advertising, that alcohol's the answer. Mommy needs wine. Even if on the surface you're like, well, that's just a joke. Subconsciously, it's feeding into us. And it's no more clear to me than when you see the astronomical increases in women's drinking between age 35 and 55 in the last 10 to 15 years. Like this type of advertising and marketing and this narrative is having an impact, whether or not we think it's a harmless joke or not. The stats don't lie. They're showing us that women are drinking more than ever. And it's having very harmful impacts. I think about my own parenting when I was kind of feeding off this narrative, and it felt very stifled. It felt, parenting with a hangover is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
It's self-sabotage, isn't it? Really, you get drunk and then the rest of your life is tricky. I wonder if there's something more sinister, why the alcohol industry wants women to be drunk in particular. I'm fascinated by that. Have you got any thoughts on that, Celeste?
I do.
Glad Gary.
I know, but I'm glad you're sitting down. So when I think about the alcohol industry specifically targeting women, I think we are an easy target because we are under-supported. We are in kind of a weaker position, and it feels in a patriarchal system, it feels like we get the short end of the stick every time, right? So to be getting numbed out to deal with it seems like the answer in a lot of ways, because it keeps you from getting angry. Nobody wants an angry, loud woman. So when I think about women drinking and consuming alcohol to stay quiet, to stay small, to stay subservient, it feels like it feeds a lot of narratives. It helps with consumerism. It helps with patriarchy. It helps with capitalism. Like I think about all the people who profit off of pushing drinks on women, and it's a lot of people in power. And I know I don't want to get too political on you, but I'm very passionate about it because I grew up my whole life being told and believing that a good woman is small She's quiet. She does the invisible work like a martyr. She doesn't speak up. That's what she's beautiful, and she's easy on the eyes, but she doesn't talk back. I mean, I think about all these messages I grew up believing that fed into a 20-year eating disorder and then alcohol use disorder, and it makes me angry because I fell for it so easily. And I don't want our children to fall for these same messages because they're very harmful.
You could have been reading from the Barbie film script then, Celeste, when you were talking.
I mean,
you just have to look at the boardroom, don't you, for any big business, and it's white men, basically.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But what I find fascinating, I'm a father with a daughter, and as a man, I can't think I'd ever want to hold Esme back. But there's something that goes on in big business that still wants to kind of push that narrative. It's absolutely wild.
It's everywhere. And it's such an ingrained message that even the women are pushing the message at this point. We are probably, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I pushed the mommy needs wine message on everybody too, because I didn't want to be the only one drinking at this. And it really was. I was drinking at my anger, my rage. I was really bottling in this frustration and feeling helpless and powerless. And it felt easier, and it seemed to make more sense to drink at it than to try to change it. And that's what I hope we can make changes around moving forward, because it's not about pulling alcohol off all the shelves, right? That's not my end goal. And I don't have any problem with anybody drinking, but my fear is people are drinking at some of these bigger socioeconomic situations that we should instead be trying to resolve.
Do you find you get any pushback though, Celeste, from speaking up?
Oh, yes. Let me tell you, I just posted a TikTok last week or 2 weeks ago about how trick-or-treating has kind of become this pub crawl for adults, that it seems like now more than ever, when the grown-ups go with our kids to trick-or-treat from house to house, alcohol's available at the houses for the adults. And my question was, I'm not judging. I just want to know, is this a newer phenomenon? Is kind of a result of big alcohol and the mommy wine culture? Or has it always been like this? And I got hundreds of comments of people calling me Karen and telling me I sound like a lot of fun, just very defensive responses, when all I felt like I was trying to do was ask kind of a broader question as to when did this become a thing? But people do not like questioning anything around alcohol.
Do you read the comments, Celeste, on your because I can't. Gary reads all the comments because I don't. If anyone says anything, I take it to heart personally.
Oh yeah. I will read the first few.
Okay, you get the tone.
Oh yeah. I see the direction they're going, and I kind of shut my brain off after that.
But it only reinforces that the work you're doing now is needed, and that you keep banging that drum, because if everybody replied going, yes, we're in with you.
Right.
We're in with you. We've highlighted your book. We got it. Then that wouldn't be the you would think, oh yeah, right, yes, this is a problem. And nobody likes somebody that points out their slight insecurity or knows, should I be doing that?
It'd be more pleasant, wouldn't it?
It would.
All the comments
or why would you comment? Like, why do we need it? Anyway,
but
let's move on.
You're right. I mean, I feel like the more angry or adamant people get around something I say, the more I stubbornly want to dig in, almost like poke the bear.
Yeah.
Oh, I hit a nerve here. What's going on? Like, let's explore, shall we?
Let's move on to our next bit with Gary. Before you touch on the balance of labour at home, I'll just introduce it a little bit, because it first came up to me and Gary, the talk about time being equal between a mum and a dad, a parent. And I went on another podcast and I talked about the fact that leaving my kids and going to do big races, the planning and the time I needed to spend organizing them was a huge mental load for me, as well as preparing myself mentally for the fact that I was going to be running a huge distance. And I got quite a lot of stick from that then, saying, I said, oh, my husband is brilliant, but he just doesn't know all the little bits that go on at the house. And that was not a judgmental comment. I just sort of threw it out that that's just the way that our house, the way that we work. And I think a way that 99% of families do work. And I got absolutely, I didn't read the comments, Celeste, on that one.
Oh, no.
But just like you said, it touched a nerve with a lot of guys that were like, I do just as much as my wife. Yeah. And I was like, no. You don't, because you think you do. But I bet if I ask you, who needs the new pants? Who needs the socks? When did they last have a pee? Who's booked the dentist? Like all these little things.
Doctor appointments, yeah.
Yeah, all the little things. But Gary's going to ask you questions about this, because Gary is a great guy and he's super aware that sharing the load is tricky.
Well, I've got a hands up, we'd say both Eddie and I, we both go in and do big races. And yeah, I can remember quite a few actually where I just sort myself out, drive off to wherever, do the race and come back. But if that was my wife, then yes, I'd have a lot of jobs already prepped, lists. And yeah, the balance at home is staggeringly bad. Actually, I've got to put my hands up. And is that common? I know you've talked about it before, but is it common for somebody to say, I don't know, 40 hours a week each? My wife could do probably about 60% of the workload at home, and I'll do 40. There's some things my wife works shifts, or there's some jobs that she physically can't do. But the rest of it, yeah, hands up. I'm pretty bad. I'm just curious. Any advice, Celeste? Give me some advice.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you recognize it is probably the first step and so many partners in a household aren't even there yet. There's a lot of preconceived notions about the roles, the gendered roles we play in a traditional household. And it looks like a woman in a traditional home taking up the 24/7 responsibilities of caring in the home, labor at home, and parenting, while the man in this traditional home does the 40-hour work week, and then he comes home and gets to relax. And the problems with this dynamic, it's probably how so many of us were raised. It certainly was how I was raised. But it's this belief that the person who is making money has a more important job than a person who might be home caring and raising the children and doing the housework, that the person who might be coming home with the salary job gets to sit back and relax, while the person who has the 24/7 job is always on duty. And that's the problematic message. In the book, Fair Play, that was the first time I ever read about how it doesn't matter how much anybody's making. Like, take salary off the table. Both your jobs are equally important and should be treated as such. This isn't a hierarchy in terms of who's got the most important work, because arguably whoever's at home raising the children, I would argue that's the most important work. It all just depends. But what we do see in these traditional home fronts, even if the woman is working, the responsibility of parenting and labor at home the majority still falls on the woman. And that leads to not only this imbalance in labor at home, but it leads to the mental load of motherhood, which, if we keep rolling down this hill, is what I believe is why women are drinking more than ever. We can keep going with all this, but the stats I've seen show that even in a home where both partners are working full time, the woman in a traditional home takes on twice as much household labor and twice as much childcare. And that's just a lot. It's a lot, and it's exhausting. And it's not an ideal situation. I believe it's not an ideal situation for either partner because, in my home, my husband, his input as a dad is just as important as my input as a mom. And I think he would argue that just the same. So when I am taking child caring responsibilities away from him, or when it's assumed I will, it's doing everyone in the home a disservice.
Do you think it's a constant conversation as well, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it has to be a regular ongoing conversation because life changes. It starts, when you bring the newborn home. It changes when a job changes, or when your first child goes to school, or whatever life's throwing at you. You need to keep having these conversations because the mental load and the responsibilities and the household responsibilities keep changing. And it has to be ongoing, and it has to be a two-way conversation because ideally, it's a two-partner relationship. If there are two partners in the relationship, if it's a single husband or wife, then obviously, ideally doesn't apply here. But I'm just talking about in a two-partner home. I would like to think that it's in everyone's best interest for both partners to be equally invested.
I think it almost starts earlier than when the newborn comes, because when you first realize that you're pregnant, in those early stages of being pregnant, and most people feel terrible, you feel sick and you're tired, and you're told, don't tell anybody. You've got to just get on with it. Got to get on with it. Keep it to yourself. You've got to keep working. You've got to keep working. You've got to keep your life going and pretend that it's all fine. Pretend it's all fine, because if anything goes wrong, you don't want to explain it to everyone. And I think that's the first message you're told when you become a mother, is that you must keep it all inside you, how you're feeling. And you're meant to glow when you're pregnant. You're meant to feel great. You're meant to be able to run marathons. And actually saying, I don't, this is hands up, this is happening. I don't feel good. I feel scared, whatever. That's not in the narrative. That's not in the baby book, from early on, is it? So it's changing that story. But I think our generation, like you said, it's we saw our parents where the mums, 99% of them, the mums did everything, and the dads went to work and came back, and that role switched, and us getting into the workplace. Have you seen lessons in chemistry, Celeste?
I haven't seen it. I've read the book. The book was incredible. Yes,
incredible. I'm just watching it now. It's just come out over here, and I can't get over it. But it's and it's only 50, 60, 70 years ago. It's just not that long ago that women were treated like that. Sorry, I don't want to defend men, though. But do you think there's some men out there saying, "Well, I try to help, but you keep pushing me away"? Is that? Yeah.
My husband was one of them. When we had our first conversation about this, where I was like, I am drowning. I need you to step it up, like a lot of blaming and finger pointing. And he's like, every time I try to participate, you push me away. You tell me I'm doing it wrong. You make me feel like crap. What do you expect? I don't know what you want from me. And I think that's why, I say it has to be a two-way conversation, because it's much more complicated. I think these impossible parenting standards that I recognize from mothers of what a good mother looks like is a mother that does it all. And that was the role I tried to take on as a new mom that really led to me initially feeling like I was drowning, and me feeling like I had to have this conversation with my husband, and him saying, I've been wanting to be involved the entire time, but you haven't let me. So it needs to be coming from both, because, we're both going to be equally responsible for how we change and how we step up.
The dialogue is so important, the talking. And as you say, is once you say something to your partner, normally they go, yeah, okay, yeah, I feel the same. Can we talk a little bit about how running has helped your sobriety journey? If it has helped, were you a runner before you became sober, or has it sort of traveled alongside you?
I started running when I became a mom. My youngest was colicky, and it seemed like the only exercise I could do that calmed him down, that I didn't need to hire a babysitter for. I could just put him in the jogger and start running. So that's really how I learned. My running has absolutely flourished in my sobriety. The difference between the way I ran before I quit drinking versus how I run now has really transformed, where it doesn't feel like something I have to do, but something I get to do. It has been such a key part of one of my sober tools of things that I can look forward to and I train for, and it gets me to travel. I mean, it's a really fun part of my lifestyle now that I don't think would ever have been such a key factor, or certainly not a priority if I was still drinking.
And there's something about having a race in the calendar, isn't it? For the whole family, if either mum or dad has got a race in the calendar, it's sort of like sacrosanct. It's that weekend, that's for you, and the support that you then get to training for it, having a little goal and stuff. So good for the kids to see as well, mum or dad. People might say, and I know in our community that we are addicted to running. Gary is definitely addicted to running, and that perhaps swapping the drinking for the running lots of people who've been seen, you can control your body, control your sobriety by running. Were you aware of that? That you were like, I cannot let running become what alcohol was to me, or is that not in your dialogue?
I mean, it's something I'm aware of. It's something I think about. I read Rich Roll's book on this, on ultras and his addiction story, and I know that it's an easy way to swap addictions. You have to consider and be aware of and make choices around. I mean, the leg up I have is I know what addiction feels like. So it can happen with anything. I was reading this fantasy book these past couple weeks, and it consumes me so much that I was like, I feel like I'm addicted to reading this book series. Like to a scary point where I was like telling the kids, like, shush, I'm busy, like everything, all my priorities fell out of whack. Like it was a little scary. So it really can be anything. And, but I don't think it's a reason to take something that you're passionate towards away. But, you just have to be careful, as you should with anything, whether it's, running or fantasy novels.
Have you got any advice for anybody who's perhaps been listening to this, or perhaps as like a friend or a mummy friend, dad friend, that they think, oh, this is ringing a few bells? How to either like maybe approach somebody, have that first awkward conversation, or have that first awkward conversation with yourself?
I think, for anybody who is sober curious or questioning their alcohol habits, would be to take a 30-day break and to start there. And if that sounds impossible, that's data. That's important data to be collecting. To also recognize, based on my own story, like you do not ever have to do any of it alone, even if you don't know what you're doing yet. Even if you're like, well, I don't know if I have to quit completely. There's a community that supports that too. I mean, there are communities that support any level of trying to reduce your alcohol intake. And I would recommend looking into it, considering it, trying a 30-day alcohol-free experiment. Dry January is coming up, and giving yourself this opportunity to collect data. Don't put the pressure on yourself to say this is forever. Say you just want to see what it's going to feel like. And after 30 days, you will see changes. You might be sleeping better. Your energy might be higher. Your mood swings might be reduced. This is important data to collect, and you might be feeling so good you might want to keep going, but you won't know unless you try. What I always tell people is you already know what it feels like when you drink, but it's time to explore what it might feel like if you don't.
Love that idea. Tell us a little bit about the Sober Mum Squad.
Yeah, the Sober Mom Squad was born out of the pandemic, when it felt like mothers just had nowhere to go, especially mothers in recovery. And my friend Emily Lynn Paulson started it, and I've been hosting meetings there ever since. I host several meetings a week. It's for anybody who identifies as a mom and is living or exploring alcohol-free living. And we do have people who participate from the UK, from Ireland. And it's been such a source of community for me, as somebody who came from no community to now have a community of other mothers who know exactly how I feel. and what I'm doing has been really uplifting and invaluable.
One last question, Celeste. Well, for me, how does it feel kind of reliving your journey constantly with podcasts and then in the book? I know when I consume certain content and it triggers something in me and it maybe send me kind of mentally into a negative place. What's it like for you? I suppose, being in that cycle, you come on here, spend nearly an hour with us tonight, just reliving it and reliving it.
It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. I'm a writer at heart, so reflection is something I love to do. But perspective is everything. I think it's so important to reflect on those early days of sobriety because it does show me how far I've come. Ultimately, this is a happy story because so much has come from my experience and I've learned so much. So having these conversations leaves me feeling more filled than depleted in every sense. But I also appreciate the darker questions and the sadder times in my life because it's important to stay, to stay fresh on that and to remember, what those dark days can look and feel like. Because when you live in a world like we live in where this ideation of alcohol is everywhere, we need to remind ourselves what that sometimes can end up looking as.
And what's next? Other than Sober Mom Squad, how can people connect with you, Celeste?
I am on social media. My handle is The Ultimate Mom Challenge. And my book's available on Amazon or other bookstores, wherever you buy your books. And I do weekly writing for sober support each week on Substack.
And will you be putting your name in the hat for the 2025 London Marathon?
I will.
Do it.
But my hopes aren't up. I realize it's a very competitive lottery. So I will throw my name in there and hope luck is on my side this year.
You said you've done 5. You've done Washington. What are the other marathons that you've done, Celeste?
Yes, I did this trail one in Cloverfield, California was my first. And then I've done St. George, Utah twice, and I did Chicago.
Wow. Was it quite hilly, the St. George, Utah? I only know that from because I watched the Ironman there when it was, and they said it was
beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's a lot of downhill. So a lot of people use it to qualify for Boston. Okay. I don't because I'm too slow, but a lot of people are there specifically with that goal.
Chicago's super fast though, isn't it? If it's not windy, from what I hear.
Yeah. And that was a really fun one. That was such a exciting one that was my first big one. So I love that. And then, so on my dream list would be London, New York, and maybe Paris.
Oh yeah. I've done Paris. It's sensational. What a place to start and finish. And it really did feel, sometimes I've got my head down at the ground, kind of questioning my life choices. But Paris was pretty awesome. Yeah, if you could get to that. It's a shame it's not a major, actually. I don't know what you have to do to get to be a major marathon, but 100%. I think I did Paris Marathon, and then not to ruin the whole family day, I ended up going up the Eiffel Tower too, and we walked the first two.
Wow.
Awesome.
How did you get down the steps, or did you get the lift down?
I'm not too sure.
We come down backwards.
I don't know. I remember having an enormous donut and a big pint of beer up the top of the Eiffel Tower. That was probably one of the top 5 days in my life. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, fingers crossed you're getting that. And fingers crossed I'm trying my best. I'm on this kind of old man journey to try and qualify for London automatically so I can avoid the ballot. So yeah, fingers crossed. It'd be nice to see you there. Got a quick 5. Are you ready for these? A quick 6, actually. We've added an extra question now that we know that you've got a dog in the house.
Okay.
We caused some controversy the first time we asked this question. But is your dog allowed on the furniture?
I have 2 dogs. Only one's allowed in the room with me for podcasts because the other one's too loud. They're not allowed on the furniture, but they make themselves happily at home on the furniture.
Do they do that at your mum's house?
Yeah.
Excellent.
And they only do it on the couches. They do not jump up on the bed, which I think would be my husband's that's it.
Hell no.
But the couches are and they're too cute to say no to. No one's saying no.
That's the thing. And then you get their ears and it's so warm.
Yeah.
Rex is, my dog is sneaky. He's not allowed on the bed, although I would let him on the bed, but my wife doesn't. But then we know he's been on the bed because when we come home, there's dog hair on the bed. But for some reason,
They're smart. They're very smart.
Okay, next question. Is there a movie? It doesn't have to be 10 times, but is there a movie you remember seeing lots and lots of times?
I see so many movies over and over again with my children. I say Up would be like top 10, one of my favorite
classic.
movies ever.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That was such a good movie. Yeah.
Eddie and I knocking on your door and we are famished. What are you going to cook us? What's your signature dish?
My signature dish. Take out.
We've never been offered it. Would love a takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not a cooker. I mean, I cook, but it's not something I enjoy doing or feel like I'm any good at. But if I'm going to pick a meal that somebody will make for me, it would be nachos every time.
We introduced that to our kids the other night, Saturday night. We were like, and they were like, "Oh, because it looks a bit." They're like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "You're gonna love it."
Are nachos American? Is that an American thing?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Do you guys have many nachos in Europe?
Yeah. It'd be so. Yeah, I don't think it'd be something perhaps we would cook like a lot, but definitely at restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, it's a treat for us, nachos.
Yeah.
Okay. Think back to your teenage years. What posters would be on your bedroom wall?
Oh boy, this is a fun one. I had posters of River Phoenix.
Oh, River Phoenix, yeah.
Yes, before he passed away. I had quotes from Neil Young. I had a Metallica poster. I had a poster of the Oakland A's because I grew up in the Bay Area. A lot of, boy band stuff, but also things that I thought were cool. The teenage stuff.
I love it.
The Absolute. Do you guys remember the Absolute vodka ads?
I do, but I remember the brand, but I've got no idea about the adverts. No.
They used to have ads on magazine spreads, and every single one looked different. I used to collect them, and we would put them on our wall. I'm a teenager, and here I've got Absolute vodka ads, like just
that industry. My goodness me, they start really
They start
early.
young.
It's terrible.
They really do.
That is terrible. You answered this question actually, but not a bucket list race, but maybe a bucket list destination. You could go and do a race.
So Iceland, absolutely. That will be on there at some point. My husband did Antarctica, so that'd be a cool one.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure.
Hard to get to.
Yeah, and cold.
And cold.
I'm not sure it'd be my choice.
I heard, so you're all booked up and then you miss your weather window and you just don't do the race. It's as simple as that. Or you could be locked there for a couple of weeks because you can't fly out again. That'd be pretty stressful.
I wouldn't mind that so much.
I'm stuck in Antarctica.
Well, that's a sure. Depends if they got nachos or not. I don't know. Okay, every week we share the podcast over on Instagram and you get to choose the story music, Celeste. What song are we going to go for this week?
I'm on such a Taylor Swift kick. So something Taylor Swift. Do I need to say which song?
Well, that's up
if
to
you have one. If not, I'll choose. Don't you worry.
Okay. My favorite Taylor Swift song is Getaway Car. I don't know how relevant it is to this podcast.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. People choose all sorts of random. And if I get to do it, I'll probably choose something completely different anyway. Because I'll be like, which would you say? I like that one.
Yeah. This one sounds good.
I did that last week actually with Neil's song. I got the wrong Shed 7 song. Oh, what a plonker. He didn't complain. I think I'm the only person that noticed.
Celeste, thank you so much for giving up your time to come on the podcast, for sharing your journey. everybody I know that will be listening will definitely touch in some way with your story. And hopefully, perhaps if you've been listening as well while you're out on your long run or driving around or folding the laundry, as we always say, it might have just perhaps flicked a switch in your mind, or perhaps thought, oh yeah, that friend, I need to touch base with that friend and just see how they're doing. So thank you from across the pond, from France to UK, all the way to America. Yeah, thank you so much for giving up your time, sharing your journey.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Celeste.
I love this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Well done, Gary. I thought you handled yourself brilliantly in that interview. Sorry if I feel like I wind people up a bit sometimes when I go on about, but it is a personal, my mental load that I talk about with the kids and stuff. Everybody's different. Maybe if you're a woman listening to that, you might be like, I didn't even realize it was a thing until actually this podcast really has made me open my eyes when I think about it more, about how much it takes for me to leave the house, to go to a race, to make a training plan. And even like, what I was talking about earlier about fueling myself. And I was like, there's a lot going on, and just being as a woman, being more aware of it, and as a man. So hopefully, that just made you think a little bit. And or maybe as well, I've said it a few times, if you've got a friend who perhaps you've got a little bit of a worry about or a little thought, you could always point them towards the podcast as well. Thanks very much, Celeste, for coming on and chatting to us.
And also, you can reach out, you can comment, but we're not saying that every household has an imbalance of labour. It's just Celeste's experience and my experience too. So yeah, worth sharing. Tales from the trails. Strava Club, lots of miles this week. Wow, Giacomo Squintani tops the charts, 133 miles. We follow each other on Strava, and he's been having loads of fun over on Italy. He's such a prolific runner. My goodness me. Every week he is there or thereabouts. Super impressive. Pete Walker tops the charts for amount of time at 28 hours, 37 minutes and 19 seconds. And also Pete Walker again with 22,871 feet. Request to follow. So I'm not too sure what Pete has been up to, but whatever it is, Pete, that is pretty impressive. Well done. Also, we talked about Mike Ruffin a couple of weeks ago. He topped the charts, but he was a request to follow over on Strava. Well, it was his third last one standing win of the year at Golspie, 29 hours. Oh my goodness. He said it's the last one of the year, but yeah, mid-November. Maybe time for one more, Mike. I'm not too sure what the events are looking like close to you. Either way, wowzers, that is super impressive. The whole psychology of that last man standing, backyard ultra blows my mind.
To me, it's just the cold. It would be the stopping. And then
I don't think you actually do stop for long, do you? Especially for the latter stages.
I just be like, I'm going to keep jogging. I'm going to keep jogging to get too cold.
But now the bar's been raised. Well, I can't remember what the distance they covered in that last one that went on, but oh my goodness me, even if you felt competitive, think, I could do that. You look at how long these guys are running for.
Right, I'm going to give a warning for this. This Tales from the Trails is the funniest Tales from the Trails.
Pull over.
Pull over. Do a wee before you start laughing. Prepare yourself, because I was reading it last night and I literally snorted my tea out everywhere. I cannot wait to read this. Gary was like, oh, wait, we've got another one. I was like, no, it's got to go out. It's got to go out in the public.
Overruled me.
I don't often get to overrule you because you're the boss. This is from Anne Hurrell. Hi, Gary and Eddie. This isn't my tale. I was just a witness. This is even worse because I love the witness account. Oh, yeah. Okay. She's just a witness. Nothing to do with her. So have been reluctant to share it. And for reasons that will become obvious, I'm not disclosing names. But a few friends and fellow Teen Trails fans know the story and have badgered me for a while to write it. So I'm feeling it's too good not to share. So here goes. Prepare yourself. You will never guess, everybody, when you think the worst thing that could happen to somebody. You would never guess what this is going to go. Sunday lunchtime, Lakeland 100 weekend in 2022. After a rather soggy 40 hours, the sun finally makes an appearance. It's not long after the final legends have crossed the finishing line, having been out in the fells through 2 whole nights, covering a whopping 105 miles. These people are shattered, broken, and a few are lying on the grass around the marquee as crowds start to gather for the imminent prize giving. I've arranged to meet a friend and his wife, and we're milling around, being careful not to step on the few hundred finishes that are spread on the ground. My friend's wife has their little dog with them, and being the responsible owners that they are, it is, of course, on a lead. What happened next happened so quickly that my friend's wife couldn't do anything about it. Suddenly, she felt a tug on the lead. She looked down. The dog had moved into poo position and was doing its thing, right on the head of one of the 400 finishers. Whether it was the smell or the sensation of what was landing on his head, the chap stirred from his slumber and actually turned his head towards the source further, compounding an already very unfortunate situation. My friend's wife, understandably, was absolutely mortified and offered her profuse apologies and attempt at remedying the situation. Poo bag? The chap was either so traumatized by racing for 40 hours or by the incident itself that incredibly he wasn't really fazed by it. I can only assume that he thought it was some sick hallucination. Unfortunately, it really didn't happen. Given the very active Lakeland Facebook page, I'm amazed this tale hasn't surfaced previously, but it's out there now. My tale from the trail, the Lakeland 100 finisher who was rewarded for his efforts by a face full of dog poo. Absolutely love the podcast, by the way. All the best, Anne.
Poo face guy, reveal yourself. Come on. We need to know who you are. Oh, I can't imagine it.
Ever had a dog poo in your face, Gary?
No, I've had lots of dog poo on my hands, but not on my face. What a tale from the trail. That was hilarious.
We love reading out your stories. Oh my gosh. I had to read that about 3 times before so that I got all my giggles
Get the laughs out.
We love reading your stories. So if you have a Tales from the Trails, please do send it over to hello@tntrails.com.
Our Active Route competition is still ongoing. Yeah, we've got 2 £25 vouchers up for grabs. It is simple because quite a lot of people are taking part. All you have to do is follow Tea and Trails on Instagram, follow Active Route on Instagram. Active Route and Tea and Trails will share this week's show over on Instagram, and in the comments, pop the hashtag Active Route. All patrons get an automatic entry. But yeah, you can enter twice if you want, patrons. So go and fill your boots. We'll pick a winner at random Monday, the 20th of November.
I've already read a review, so thank you, guys. We begged. We've been inundated. So if you don't get to your review this week, do not fear, my dear friends. Keep listening. It will come.
Informative and conversational. I have been listening to Tea and Trails podcast whilst on my daily runs. I've done a few of self-directed ultramarathons, but have struggled to take the leap to do a race. I listened to the episode with Rinny McGregor, who I have followed for quite some time. And after the episode, I impulsively signed up for my first race. I'm trying hard not to think about the crowds. It makes me feel like I'm running with a friend when I'm listening to the podcast on my long trail runs. Plus, I'm learning a lot about what to expect. I'd recommend it to anyone who is interested in ultras and wants a nice and easy listen on long runs. Oh, I love that easy listen. I know we like the radio too of smooth radio of podcasts. Lovely. Thanks for that. Poppy Oxymoron via Apple Podcasts.
Isn't there like smooth and easy listening? Isn't it more like Classic FM? Classic FM.
We're not Classic FM.
Oh no, we're not.
I think we're more smooth.
I think we're more sort of like Orchard FM, your local radio station.
Yeah, big thanks to everybody who has left a 5-star review over on Apple Podcast, or even some have come in on YouTube. Super generous, but it's super important they keep coming in because, like we always say, it helps this podcast go in front of like-minded listeners. I think we're cooking, Eddie. We're moving on. What have you got?
We've got a busy day, Gary. We've not got time for shilly-shallying today. Oh,
busy day.
Gary finds all these interviews. Test. I like.
You know what I listened to Adam Buxton podcast, and he was talking to Kirsty Young, who did Desert Island Discs, and they were talking about the preparation they do for their guests. And I'm pretty sure she said it could be about a week of research she does per guest. And I thought, because she is wonderful, it's really good. Short and Adam Buxton, the questions that he asks, I'm so super impressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying they're not really good at what they do. They are.
Don't know where this is going. Are you trying to
They get a lot more.
It's like an HR review and you're going, Eddie, you need to work harder?
No, I just wish we had more time. That's all I
Yeah.
ever wish with this podcast. Sorry, Eddie, I butted in.
Yeah.
What's your week looking like?
A little less busy than last week, thank goodness, sharing the parenting load. And on Saturday, there is a tiny bit of sunshine on my weather app.
Forecast.
So hopefully I might be able to dry my pants out at the weekend. I've got one child going off skiing, starting that old process. So I'm just repeating what I did last week. Basically 2 gyms, lots of volume, long run, a little bit of progression run, steady running as and when I feel like it.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So nothing heroic, just ticking off the days. I have just come back from the wettest run. I'm going to put a video on the Facebook page because people love that sort of stuff. Seeing people, and I was thinking, like, people always go, oh, I'd love to live there. I'd love to live in Chamonix whenever they come over for the UTMB week because they see the Alps in June and July. I tell you what, for the rest of the time, it's pretty miserable. And one of the things that makes it even more miserable is the fact they've cut down a load of trees from where we live, which is up in the trees. And so it's caused a ton of flooding and all the new builds. So you're not allowed to build during tourist season. So you guys don't see the road closures, the constant, like just on the way down, our little road down to town, there's 3 sets of traffic lights for different cranes and stuff of people building houses. It is madness. The building of chalets, like,
do they, once they've taken the trees down, or do they do something afterwards to manage that extra water?
It's just like left. There's just water pouring down.
Oh, God damn it.
And all these new builds, of course, like, so I couldn't run on the path this morning because it was totally flooded. And the police actually stopped me. I'd already run through the flood, and then decided even I wouldn't run through that because it was so dangerous. So I'd got the dogs and leader and running up the road, and they stopped me and said, "You're not going to run on that path today." How sad is that? They knew. Hello, crazy running lady. Oh, not that bad today. I was like, no, of course not. Thinking I've already run on it. You're late up here. Yeah. It's a bit late for that. So they've closed that. And then, so I ran down the road, but because they've done all this building and they've tunneled into the mountain, the water is just, and it's like this horrible dark water. So I thought, oh, I'll run around town. Town is totally flooded. The drain has, like, there's just what the whole road was like knee deep water running down the road from, I guess they just, like, they've moved earth so much from building all these houses. The water's like, well, I can't go down my normal places. It's really worrying and it's quite upsetting. And I don't even, like, we've lived here for 8 years, but I'm not somebody who's lived here all my life. So I don't know how the locals must feel about all these new builds and stuff and people building houses that are going to be in for 1 week a year. It's just...
Oh, it makes me super cross.
It makes me super cross. So living in the mountains isn't all lovely trail running, and it also comes with it not only the weather, but also the terrible, what is it called? Building, the construction is just madness. Since we've been here, our road, which they're not allowed to build up past us, thank goodness, because of the avalanche risk. But below us, I reckon there's 20 new houses being built in the last. It's madness. It's madness, Gary. Anyway, I've digressed.
What does that do for? I don't want to get too political, but I know with the Lake District, it outprices locals. Does that similar for, say, someone who lives in Morzine and maybe has a job that isn't that well paid? They just physically can't afford to live in Morzine.
And nobody can live in Morzine, basically. Only people. I know. It's the same. I know the same happens in Cornwall and things. It's very sad. Anyway, so
I really political this week, haven't we?
What I got to was that so I wasn't allowed to run down the path. I couldn't run down the path. It had gone. It was under the river. So I ran down the road, but the road was flooded as well. Nuts. So I'd warmed up to try and do my session up, and then I was like, this is just, let's write this one off. Let's just do a sort of progressive, let's show willing. So same again, but I've got, I'll just keep the volume going better fueling, better kit, and gym work. I've already done my big gym weights, Gary, so I've only got my lighter gym weights. But I tell you what, that run back from the gym, I started seeing an 8 something in the miles up the hill rather than a 9. Getting stronger. It doesn't feel as bad as it did. I think that's 4 weeks.
Stronger.
Getting stronger, and that's what I'm sure 200-mile running is just all gotta be strong. So nothing exciting happening apart from talking to you all day today. You've got more exciting stuff because you just keep asking for free stuff to be sent to you.
It's not free stuff. There's an exchange of labour. It's not free.
It is. Yes. No, I'm sorry.
But workout-wise, I'm going to rewind back a couple of weeks, even though I said I don't like to go back and do the workouts I missed.
Yes, do you remember we said that? You were like, I just moved on.
Well, I'm going to rewind. I'm going to do the 15 times a minute, and then I am going to hopefully do the 6 times 2 minutes and a 2-hour long run with maybe a couple of marathon paced effort miles. We'll get those. I'm pretty confident we'll get those 3 strength sessions done. But like I seem to always do, I load those at the back of the week, which not great. Just the way the time goes that week.
Who am I judging? Because I've just talked about it. So sorry, judging.
And I'm missing the lakes training for this Manchester Marathon. And I don't want to neglect the trails too much because I have got All County Tops and Lakeland 100 and hopefully Orm and the Orm Festival too. So there are some trail running activities booked in. But I've got to say, I'm loving that. The extra time, just 2 hours run, maybe it's 2 hours, 10 minutes, 2 hours, 15 minutes, whatever it is, but done and dusted. No journey time, but it's definitely not as much fun. You know, Rex and I don't share the miles, different type of beast, but I'm hopefully too that just continuous running is going to serve me well for the Lakeland 100, where there's quite a lot of running in that race. So it's not all doom and gloom. But yeah, he said about all these reviews that this free stuff that I'm being sent. I've got to say thanks to everybody who, I've reached out to a lot of people. Some have said yes, some haven't even replied, and some have said no. So I super appreciate everybody.
You ask them again when they say no, don't you? You go,
I do try a different social media avenue. Well, I'm just a bit puzzled why they wouldn't really want to. I'm gonna blow smoke up our own bums here, Eddie. I'm a bit puzzled why they wouldn't want to connect with like a popular trail running podcast like ours. So UK-based trail running podcast anyway. So yeah, I'm a bit curious about that. But thanks to everybody who said yes, and also thanks to everybody who has popped over to YouTube and watched. Hopefully, I'm going to be testing out and reviewing this New Balance 1080 V13, which is, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but it's a long run shoe, classic kind of long run
covered
shoe.
in dog poo. Is that going to be
It's got a bit of dog poo on it. Probably won't get it out. I think 1 a week is a bit of a stretch for me. Maybe 2 or 3 a month seems to be manageable.
Much for me as well. Like I just can't. As a top viewer, I just find otherwise it'd just be too much. I can't cope with it.
Gary.
Too much. Never too much.
You're only human, Eddie.
I know.
And that is it. Yeah, hopefully we do all that. I'm really enjoying this pre-marathon session because 15 times a minute, even 6 times 2 minutes.
No, I looked at that. I was like, I love
that. 2 hour long run. You fancy that? But 2 hour long run, for a road marathon.
At the moment, that's my everyday run.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 hour marathon, I see when I'm deep in marathon training, maybe it goes up to 2.5 hours. I don't think it's going to go too.
Oh, because if you're on the road, you're not far off. You're probably like 17, 18 miles there, are you?
Yeah. Yeah. So fingers crossed. That's the week plan.
Kudos for tuning in. And thanks to Precision Fuel and Hydration for sponsoring the show and for all the goodies you sent me. I'm going to have to reach out and go, you sent me that enormous box of stuff. It's kind of all gone. Thank you to both them and to all our partners and patrons. We couldn't do this without your ongoing support. Be kind to your future self. Never have I used that mantra more than at the 19-mile chocolate peanut butter moment. Eddie, be kind to your future self. Be kind to your future self. Everybody else, breathe and believe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and give us a share.
They're my 2 favorite mantras. Be kind to your future self, breathe and believe. I love using those. But yeah, well done. for getting to the bitter end. You are all awesome. And we hope you have the best of weekends. Best of luck if you're racing or with your long runs or maybe even a wild wee to keep sharing those pics. You started a movement, Eddie. I loved it. You know,
Do you see? People are a bit concerned about one of my ski lift one going, there could be like CCTV, like those lifties are what I've got the CC. I don't think they'd ever turn that seat. Even if they did, they're welcome to see me.
I nearly photoshopped it with some yellow.
Yellow snow.
Didn't have time.
But also, I love a danger wild wee. Do people get this? Like, I'll choose a spot that there is a sight point that someone could come around the corner, because I think it's excellent use of multitasking for my pelvic floor if I suddenly have to add a little bit of adrenaline, like.
I'm pretty sure I'm on some CCTV cameras somewhere. They might have wheeze up.
I bet you are. Just the wheeze.
That'll be a YouTube channel. Why not listen to the UK's #1 trail running podcast and warm yourself up with your favourite brew? My name is Gary Thwaites.
And I'm Eddie Sutton.
And that was episode 47 of Tea and Trails.